Steve coming tonight or no?
I'm sorry, Rick, I couldn't hear you.
Is Steve coming tonight or no? Zach, is Steve Zach here tonight?
No, no.
Okay. All right.
Okay, well, I can start. I just want to introduce us to those that have not met us. I'm Deb Hetrick, and I'm the lead for this project for recruiting you a new police chief for
Hi,
the
Deb.
Rising Group.
Deb,
Yes.
I'm so sorry, but I need to have the chair or the president of the commission call it to order, and they just have meeting minutes to go through before we get to your piece. So
Okay.
no worries, he will call on you in just a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All right. It is now 5:31, Tuesday, November 30th. Ms. Ewald, can I safely assume the notice of open public meeting was posted?
Yes.
All right, then I would, noticing we have a quorum with Commissioner Bullock and Commissioner Anderson here, I would call the meeting to order. Our first order of business would be to look at the minutes from the November 2nd, 2021 meeting minutes. Take a quick look at those. So just to kind of move it forward so we can get part of the presentation going. Commissioner Bullock, have you had a chance to take a look at the meeting minutes?
I have.
Does it square with your memory of the event?
It does square.
Excellent, thank you. Commissioner Anderson, have you had a chance to take a look at the meeting minutes as well?
I have. They look
All
good.
right. And does that square with your memory of the event as well?
It does.
All right, then I'd be looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from November 2nd of the police.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from November 2nd.
I second that emotion. I mean, that motion, sorry.
Are you singing?
I think I am singing.
All right. Okay, we have a motion on the table. We have a first and a second. I ask Ms. Ewald if you want to go ahead and call the roll.
Sure. Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bullock,
Yes.
President Cole.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Excellent. So two things out of the work for today. All right, so I would say, Ms. Hetrick, we're now at our agenda item number 3, the review of the police chief recruitment timeline. And I believe that would be you. And you're muted. I'm sorry, ma'am.
Right, now I get to go. Okay, I'm just going to do a very quick introduction for those that haven't met me. I'm Deb Hetrick. I'm the lead on this project. We very much look forward to working with you. We have 4 members of our team. Me, Dee Dee Morgan, who is currently in Saudi Arabia helping them improve and modernize their corrections system, but she can join us by Zoom when the 9-hour time difference works out, and she's also doing other work behind the scenes. Brian Bridges and Wayne Strong. And Wayne, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Wayne Strong. I'm a retired Madison police officer. I worked for the Madison Police Department from 1989 until 2013, which time I retired at the rank of lieutenant. Prior to that, I started my law enforcement career with the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I worked as a sheriff's detention deputy, working in the jail from 1986 to 1989 before coming to Madison. Since retiring in 1989, I've done a variety of different things in private sector, public sector, nonprofit. So looking forward to working with each of you. Thank you.
Okay, Wayne, do you want to get us started?
Sure. We just wanted to kick things off. Essentially, we just want to know from you folks what direction you think you would like to see us go with helping with the selection process, and if there's any questions that you have that we can answer to help to help us reach the goal of what you guys want to accomplish, feel free to let us know. So that's why don't we start there?
Okay, Wayne, you keep going in and out a little bit, so
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay now? No?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, should I start over?
No, I think we caught most of it.
Yeah.
Okay, good, thanks, Jennifer. So is it the volume that's too low, or am I coming in and out?
It just sounds like there's something over your microphone or something. I don't think there probably is, but that's the way it comes off.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay. We'll figure it out.
If you don't have questions, I would be happy to let you know what we've got set up so far. And if you want, we can go through the schedule that was in your packet.
Mhm. So just to let you know, I'm the only person that's on the police commission that was at your presentation, right?
Correct.
All right, and the other two, I don't think they've seen the presentation. So I think they probably, if you would just present what you're going to go through, I think they would have a better response after that, so.
Okay. Get that particular paper out here. So obviously, this is our first meeting with you, the Police Commission. We've already done with Rebecca and Tyler's help, couldn't do it without them, set up a number of things. What our intention is before we do anything else, to do listening sessions with the village board, the police commission, department heads, the Human Relations Commission, and then other stakeholders, which include the faith leaders, we included St. Robert's School with the faith leaders, with the school district, with the bid, I think that's Business Improvement District.
That is correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
And of course, with the village manager and assistant manager, we will also do a listening session with the public. What the listening sessions consist of is 8 questions. They will be the same questions asked of each group. There's no personal information that's requested. There's no names that will be written down. It's totally confidential, whatever people's answers are. And they're the same questions for each group. The police department, we will do the same thing, same questions, but we plan on doing them in person. The reason for that is, well, for one thing, Zoom saves us a lot of travel time. And so that's why we can do most of them, especially with groups. It's so much more convenient also for them to be able to do Zoom rather than have to meet in a certain location. But we are going to do the police department in person because in prior recruitment processes, we found that the police officers want to be individually interviewed and that it goes much better in person. So tomorrow I have a meeting with your interim police chief, and he and I are going to figure out a Zoom meeting, of course. He and I are going to figure out how he can schedule that with the least amount of inconvenience and overtime and et cetera for the department members. Most likely it'll be Wayne and I that'll be traveling down to do them. And if we each have to do a group or whichever way we have to do it to make it work, we'll do it that way. Does that help, Craig?
Yeah, that's perfect. Jennifer, Rick, do you guys have any questions?
I do. To start with, what's the process for advertising and getting the word out that there's an opportunity?
Okay, so good question. And Brian Bridges is the one that's going to be working with you for the advertising. So first of all, we need to do the listening sessions, because what they do is actually, I can tell you what the questions are, and maybe that will help you to understand better what we're getting at. What we're trying to do is get at what people are looking for in a new police chief. So we ask, what are the best things about the Shorewood PD? If you could change or improve one or two things, what would they be and why those specifically? What characteristics do you consider to be most important for the next chief of police to possess? Describe your perception of the relationship between the police department and the community. What would you say is the most important criminal issue for the police department to address in Shorewood? What do you feel is the most important issue for the new chief of police to deal with regarding the community? What would be a good first step for the police department to address issues of equity, diversity, systemic racism, and implicit bias in the community? And how important is it to you that the police engage in community policing? So I can send those to Rebecca and she can send them out to you if you're interested in having a copy. We're trying to get at, obviously some very basic stuff. And then we want to specifically address equity, diversity, systemic racism, implicit bias, and community policing. And what we hope to get from that are a number of themes, and that's generally what happens. From each group, you get themes that pop up, and more than one person gives the same answer. And then you look at all the groups together and you pick out the themes that pop up the most often. And you use that, if necessary, to modify your job description and also in the job announcement. So now back to your question, long way around. So when we get that done, and then we'll be able to do the job description and the job announcement. At that point, we put together an application packet, and that packet will be available. First of all, it has to be entered on WileyNet, which is the Wisconsin Law Enforcement Network. And that's the law. It has to go there. And from there, people look at employment opportunities and that pops up. So that's available to anybody. You don't have to sign on, log in, whatever, to get on WileyNet. On WileyNet, there will be a link to your website somehow to let people download application materials. Then in addition to that, we'd like to have it on your website. We would be emailing and sending the announcement to surrounding jurisdictions. As far as papers, newspapers go, we would do the larger cities in Wisconsin. We would do Green Bay, we would do Oshkosh, we would do Eau Claire, just what I can think of off the top of my head, La Crosse, Milwaukee. And then also, if you want us to go farther, we can do Minneapolis, we can go farther than that. Then we have specific groups that we'll target that will also advertise with. NOBLE, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, the Wisconsin Association of Women Police. I'm trying to think who else there is off the top of my head, but there are, the Wisconsin Association of Chiefs of Police, the Milwaukee County Association of Chiefs of Police. Any other counties that you want us to hit, we'll do. Does that answer your question, Richard?
For the most part, so most of the advertising we're going to do is going to be inside the state of Wisconsin, and then it would be targeted outside if we were specifically targeting outside.
You can target outside. If you want us to do it with the International Association of Chiefs of Police, we can certainly do that. And then it would go actually all over the world.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm just thinking nationwide here, or there, there's, I think, doesn't the National Association of Chiefs of Police have their own publication as well?
They may.
Okay.
That I would have to, that I can check on. Also Noble is national. They don't have a branch. They used to have a branch in Milwaukee and they don't have one anymore. So that that would be national. That's the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Executives.
Okay.
We can do anything that you want. And if you have more suggestions of places for us to advertise, that's great.
Because
Okay,
I think I agree with you, Rick. I'd really like to spread our net as far and wide as possible on this.
Okay.
I just, and I think it also depends on the amount of feedback we get through the listening sessions. If I'm not skipping my turn, can I ask another question? I'm in
Sure.
front of anybody else? Okay. Looking at now, the December 13th listening session at 7 p.m., that's going to be a public in-person session, correct?
Well, we were going to do it in person, but then in speaking to Rebecca and Tyler, they felt that we would get a lot more participation if we did it via Zoom, because people may still feel uncomfortable gathering, in what would be a large group. If you have a different feeling on it, Tyler,
I
Rebecca.
think all our meetings have to be Zoom right now, Rick. I think that's like a village thing.
Sorry, go ahead, Rebecca.
All of our meetings are virtual right now. We will be transitioning to in-person meetings potentially by the end of January based upon the installation of new equipment. So I would anticipate, but your timeline for this, Deb, I want to say is December 13th, correct?
That one is December 13th, right? We were going to do the village board first and then the public. Correct. Now, Rebecca, while I have you, is that going to interfere with our ability to do the police in person, masked and socially distanced?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
See, if I can, how difficult would it be to have a Zoom and then the opportunity for an in-person? And if we could potentially use the high school gymnasium, it would be easy enough to stay socially distant and masked at that point. But if we're going to interview the cops in person, it might be good to allow the public an opportunity in person as well as one by Zoom. It's my knee-jerk reaction.
Well, what is the nature of the meeting on the 13th again? And we're not interviewing people yet, right? It's just a listening session.
It would, yeah, a listening session is what's in the document for weeks 2 to 5, public in-person listening session. And maybe that's a little bit, maybe that might be a little bit later if we have to wait until January, but especially given what's going on. But if we're going to do in-person interviews with the officers, it makes sense that we may want to have an in-person opportunity for the public. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe nobody shows, but you're better off having had that. And I think a Zoom in-person listening, a Zoom session is not a bad idea as well. We may get feedback with both, but not everybody's comfortable with this format.
Well, I can agree with you on that. And actually, our boss, Sue Reisling, who's the president of the company, had really felt strongly about having it in person. But then after we talked about it, and the thought was, well, we'll get more people via Zoom. There are people as well, particularly older people, older than me, that don't have computer access or aren't comfortable doing it that way, we could make it happen. And I shouldn't say I can't, but if you want to stay on schedule and have a police chief sometime in April, we can't wait for the second one until later. Because in order to get that advertising out, I need to have all the listening sessions done. Now, there will be an opportunity for the public to meet in person the 3 final candidates. I don't know if that makes you feel any better.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. I mean, but I'm not sure, like, if all the other village entities are not having public meetings right now, I'm not sure that we can as the police commission. I understand, I much prefer an in-public meeting, but frankly, if there are older people who can't use Zoom, they probably shouldn't be coming to an open in-person meeting. They're vulnerable,
That's a good point, yeah.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Deb, just a point of clarification. So let's say a member of the public isn't able to make the forum on December 13th. Are we offering other options for them to provide input?
Well,
Like
absolutely.
if they wanted to submit in writing their responses, would they be allowed to do that in our current process?
Oh, sure. And you're going to advertise the public meeting on your website, however you are going to do it. And you can certainly, put in there that they can submit it in writing. They could send it by email to me. You could put my email address in there. If you want, you can even put my phone number in there and they could call me.
Okay. Because, for the police commission, that might, if you're worried about an alternative method of providing feedback in case someone's not comfortable with the setting, that is another option that we could, because we're doing the communication to promote the December 13th forum this week in our communications. So in that messaging, I can put that as an alternative message to promote in case people aren't comfortable with this format or unable to attend on the 13th.
Tyler, depending on the level of feedback you get from, whether we receive any feedback at all, but depending on the level of feedback you get about wanting an in-person or so forth, would we be able to readdress this later next month? I'm just.
Well, we probably want to, Deb, correct me if I'm wrong, we want to wrap up the input process by the 17th that week in the timeline. So, I mean, like if I put in let's say the manager's memo this week, the format, and we received comments about the lack of an in-person, I'd probably be able to have a good idea on that trend by that following week. So
yeah, we can do as late as December 30th, because we have in the schedule that we want the village board to approve the updated job description. That's December 20th. So yeah, we would have to, I think you're right about the 17th.
or even the 16th, because that's when the packet goes out. So I think
Yeah.
that's the magic date.
Yeah.
But I mean, Rick, in your scenario, that would still give us, a week to strategize. But, kind of as Jen mentioned, we're with all the committees, we have been operating in a virtual environment. And I know there's been a strong desire to remain consistent until we're ready to go on transitioning, which we're close as Becky mentioned. But
And we could, whenever, Rebecca, I'm not sure when you said that you might be able to have an in-person meeting, we can do one then. That's fine. I don't think the input will be a lot different than the input we get from other groups. And we can take it into consideration when we review the applications, rather than having to have it before we send things out. Does that sound good?
I think that question is actually for President Cole.
Yes, that's who the question was for, sorry.
Yep.
All right, well, I may actually solve that particular problem if we have to wait until January for that. As I look at your timeline, I don't see this as a meeting of the police commission. I see it as just a public in-person listening session on the document. So I think depending on the level of feedback we get, we may want to open that up as a possibility afterwards, if somebody wants to give their feedback in person, especially given that we're interviewing the cops in person.
Okay,
Sorry, Rick, I missed the last part of that, especially what?
Especially as we're interviewing the, I said cops, but police officers in person.
hey, that's okay, that's okay, that's what everybody calls us. Would you prefer that we interview the police department virtually?
No,
Mhm.
I actually, I agree with you. Let me point of context. I was a sheriff's deputy for about 9 years before I went to law school. So
Oh.
I know that the folks, or the type of folks that you are start trying to get feedback from. And yes, you're better off to get feedback from them in person versus this environment. So I do think it's smart to interview them in person. I just prospectively want to make sure that we've got some sort of opportunity, should need be, for the public to have that sort of in person. I know for the city of Milwaukee police chief process, they had a number of listening sessions, and at least 2 of those were in person.
Okay. I'm just looking at the schedule here.
I do think that in-person listening session could occur after you've got the application materials finalized, as more of a just an opportunity to see, because I think you're right. The feedback will be consistent.
It generally, it tends to be, we tend to see the same themes over and over. But I do think that if we can have it, I don't remember what the date was, but mid-January, that's before the applications would be due. And that if we hear something different, we can use that, when we screen the applications. Yeah. I'm open to anything.
Well, and let me query our group. What do you think, Miss Anderson?
That's fine with me.
Craig, what do you think?
I think that's fine too. I just have one question though. So we're planning on sending out files of the questions to everybody for the listening session. How do you control the responses? Are you going to get feedback automatically sent back to you? Or are you waiting for people to automatically, raise their hand and say, I would like to comment on that?
Well, generally, the way that we've done it is that we've asked the president or the head of each group to say, to sort of say, okay, Linda, do you want to start on question 1? And then we go to, Max on question 1 and Mike on question 1. And then we go back and forth.
Mm. So what happens if we have like 30 people in there,
Well, we won't have 30 people except for the public listening session.
And that's really what I'm talking about.
That's the one you're talking about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a good question, because I think that the only way to do it with a group that size without going for 3 hours is to put the question out there and ask who would like to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
of course, you could raise your hand on Zoom. So.
All right. Okay. All right.
Could we do something where we create some kind of a Google Doc that people could have access to and input their comments or responses to the questions on their own time? I mean, kind of, Tyler, I'm thinking of kind of what we did for the article for Shorewood Today where we kept this open and anybody who wanted to comment or make a statement had the opportunity to do that.
Well, for me, that's much more attractive than having them call me. You know, or even email me, although I'm certainly willing to leave the email in, but I think that's a great idea. And maybe nobody else thinks it's a great idea, but.
Yeah, Deb,
I
if you
think it's a
want.
great idea.
Yeah, Deb, if you want to send me your list of questions, if they're finalized, I can create a form that we just send out the link and just state that if you're unable to attend or want to give your individual responses, you know, we could certainly then collect those. And then Deb, I could just send you the final responses so that you can collect and put them in a final report, however you want to use them. The only thing I would need to know is if that would be anonymous or if people would put a name with that. But other than that, I think everything else would be straightforward as far as how we do that form.
Well, from my perspective, it can be not anonymous because we don't use names, you know, ever. Of course, being anonymous, you know, gives the opportunity for people to say weird things, but then we just disregard those if they're really weird or obscene.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Those are the vast majority of my questions. Mr. Bullock, do you have any others?
No, I think I'm done with my questions for now, so.
All
I'm
right.
good. I'm eager to watch the process move forward, you know?
Yeah, no kidding. Okay. I do see Mr. Moore is in the room, but I think he might still be on a phone at this point. So we've got 4 of us in the room for the commissioners. So
I'm sorry to interrupt. I did want to see if Wayne wanted to add any thoughts to what we were just talking about.
No, I think everything sounds great. I like the idea of the sending out the questionnaire so that people can take their time and give their feedback and send that back to us, and we can, you know, go through all of the main themes that way. It's a much cleaner process. So thanks for doing that.
Okay, great.
okay, so then I guess I don't have any more questions. Thank you very much for the presentation so far. I agree. I'm really looking forward to moving forward. The one question I'd have, and maybe it's more of a Rebecca question, if somebody like myself decides to pop in on the December 13th session, and there's more than 3 of us, does it become a meeting of the police commission?
We can do a quorum notice requirement, but on that it would also be stating that there would be no action on behalf of anybody, because we presume that there may also be members of the village board who participate or attend, but there's no action for you specifically listed.
I would want to make sure that we run into a problem with that, because I have to admit, I'd be very curious to hear what people are saying.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, oh, thank you. And we'll be updating you periodically. So thank you.
Okay, well then, I believe we've gotten through our timeline, the review of the timeline, and I believe that document is in the process, or that document is in the materials that was sent out. Now, I think it'd be time to do the interviews for captain. Ms. Ewald, do you have the ability to get a hold of Acting Chief Liebenthal?
Pardon me, I do. So what I can do is I will reach out to him. If you'd like to make a motion to convene into closed session, I'll then create the breakout room and move our commissioners into that room
Sure. Specifically for purposes of the open meeting and then moving into closed session for that specific purpose to interview those candidates for captain, I would move to convene in a closed session in accordance with section 19.85 sub 1 sub C of the Wisconsin state statutes to consider issues of employment, specifically certification of a captain eligibility list. And that would be to interview captain candidates, to establish an eligibility list for the position of captain, and to discuss the captain candidates. I'd be looking for a motion for that.
Make a motion to do all that. I have to repeat everything back.
No, I believe it's, I
Make a
believe
motion to move into closed session then.
with the appropriate notice. And then anybody else, Craig?
We can't hear you, buddy.
I will second that motion. That's right. Sorry about that.
And then Ms. Ewald, if you can just, Mr. Moore, are you in a position where you can be verbal yet or no? I think he's on his way home from his after work meetings. So if you want to call the roll, Ms. Ewald?
Happy to. Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bullock,
Here.
President Cole. Motion carries by roll call vote 3-0.
And I just, because Mr. All right, let's see, turn on the Brady Bunch view gallery. Okay, we're all back in the room. We just did the interviews of the candidates in closed session, and we've reconvened back into open session. I would be making a motion to establish the eligibility list for the captain position with the two names of Christopher Mays and Fernando Santiago in no particular order. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right. And then Ms. Ewald, if you can call the roll quick.
Backing.
I love Zoom.
Got it. Sorry. I think I was joining halfway through that motion.
Okay.
So if I could just have it one more time so I could record that, I'd very much appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. I can repeat it. I would be making a motion to establish an eligibility list for the captain position with the two names of Christopher Mays and Fernando Santiago in no particular order. And then I'd be looking for a second.
Second.
Right. And then Ms. Ewald, if you don't mind taking the vote.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bullock,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore,
Aye.
President Cole.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Excellent. And then our next thing is adjournment. I was just wondering, Ms. Ewald, I would like to make and I'd just like to ask a question as it related to the review of the police chief recruitment timeline. Something occurred to me after we'd met with that group, and it came up that they were talking to faith groups in town, and they specifically just mentioned St. Robert. I don't know if that means that it's only St. Robert. And if it is only St. Robert, I would either through yourself or I can do it by email. I'd respectfully request that they reach out to the other faith organizations in town.
So St. Robert's was not the only faith organization. Kingo Lutheran was on there. There was a Lutheran church on there. There was North Shore Presbyterian.
Okay. It didn't come across during our conversation. I just wanted to make sure on that. That's it. So then, given the hour, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Oh,
There, Craig seconded.
then I will second it.
And then, Mr. Moore, do you vote to adjourn?
Yes, I do.
Ms. Anderson, do you vote
Aye.
to adjourn?
Aye.
Greg, do you vote to adjourn?
Aye.
And I would vote to adjourn as well. Aye.
Great. Meeting adjourns at 7:56 PM.
Thank you very much for your secretarying this evening.
Hey, my pleasure. Have a great night, you guys.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you for your time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.